Hey everyone, welcome to this brand new explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today because we're taking a completely objective, super structured, and honestly, just a deeply fascinating look at a profound historical and religious text, Surah as-Sajda. Our goal here is purely analytical. We're going to break this text down thematically, mapping it out so we can clearly understand its internal logic, its core arguments, and its overarching narrative. We're going to see exactly how it builds its case, step by step. So let's jump right in. Okay, let's dive right into our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to logically deconstruct this complex text into 6 digestible thematic pillars. First, truth of the revelation. Second, the miracle of creation. Third, doubts about the resurrection. Fourth, believers versus transgressors. Fifth, signs in nature and history. And finally, number 6, the final day of decision. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, Truth of the Revelation. The text opens up with this direct, completely uncompromising statement. The revelation of the book, without a doubt, is from the Lord of the worlds. What's happening here is the text is actually proactively tackling skeptics head-on. It addresses any accusations of forgery right out of the gate, firmly establishing itself as an absolute truth. It's specifically meant to warn a people who hadn't received a prior warner, aiming to guide them straight to the truth. Which brings us smoothly to Section 2, the miracle of creation. So the narrative transitions from the origin of the book to the origins of, well, literally everything. It highlights absolute divine authority over the cosmos, explicitly mentioning the creation of the heavens, the earth, and everything in between, all in 6 days. And then it drops this staggering concept of scale on us. It states that the divine command orchestrating the whole universe descends and then ascends back in a day that is equivalent to 1,000 human years. It's deliberately framing the Creator's power and timeline as something completely beyond our standard human comprehension. Now, what's really interesting about this is how the narrative suddenly zooms way in, from the massive cosmos right down to human biology. It outlines these precise, almost microscopic stages of physical and spiritual creation. It starts with base clay, moves to a fluid extract, then describes the form being perfectly fashioned and breathed into with a spirit, and finally, being granted hearing, sight, and intellect. It's basically presenting this highly structured biological and spiritual timeline of exactly how we came to be. And establishing that first miracle of creation perfectly sets up Section 3, doubts about the resurrection. Here is the core inquiry of the skeptics, quoted straight from the text. When we are lost in the earth, will we be in a new creation? You can really feel the dramatic tension here, right? The skeptics just cannot fathom how physical resurrection is even possible after a human body breaks down, returns to dust, and completely disappears into the earth. It captures a very profound, universal human doubt. But here's how the text responds to those doubts. Instead of just arguing the logic of it, it fast-forwards to this incredibly vivid future scene where the angel of death has arrived. The text describes these former skeptics, now labeled transgressors, standing there with their heads completely lowered in deep regret. They say, "Our Lord, we have seen and heard, so return us to do good. Indeed, we are certain." It's a powerful scene. It literally shows them begging for a second chance the very moment that unseen spiritual reality becomes totally undeniable to their own eyes and ears. Let's see how this builds into our next part, Section 4, believers versus transgressors. The text shifts to a stark compare and contrast approach here, providing highly specific behavioral profiles for 2 groups. On one side, we've got the believers. The text tells us that they physically forsake their comfortable beds at night to prostrate, they pray in this profound mix of fear and hope, and they give generously to charity from what they've been provided. On the flip side, the transgressors are defined by their mentality. They ignore the signs right in front of them, display sheer arrogance, and fundamentally deny that they'll ever face the meeting of their day of judgment. And actually, these drastically different actions lead to vastly contrasting eternal consequences. For the believers, the verses promise gardens of refuge and these completely unknowable, hidden joys that no soul can even anticipate. Meanwhile, the transgressors face a pretty grim, continuous cycle. They're condemned to the fire, and the text is very specific. Whenever they try to escape it, they are constantly pulled back in, forced to taste the exact punishment they used to deny. So, the crucial point is summarized perfectly by this rhetorical question placed right in the middle of the text. Is one who is a believer like one who is a transgressor? It's a simple, penetrating question, but it demands that you pause and acknowledge the total inequality of these 2 paths. The narrative is making it absolutely crystal clear. These two groups are fundamentally not equal. This leads us right into Section 5, Signs in Nature and History. Okay, so the text doesn't just leave it at the unseen. It actually asks the reader to look at tangible evidence in the world around them to back up its claims. First, it points to historical precedents, the book given to Moses as guidance for the children of Israel. Second, archaeological evidence. It asks readers to literally look at the physical dwellings of past generations that they walk past every day, generations that were destroyed for their transgressions. And third, biological evidence, rain driving life into barren, completely dead land. These are presented as physical, undeniable proofs of divine power. And this brilliantly illustrates the central argument of the entire text. By explicitly using the everyday natural water cycle, where water is driven down to barren, completely dead land to miraculously revive it and produce crops for cattle and humans, the text creates a direct, observable metaphor. The logic here is simple but powerful. Just as you literally watch the earth being brought back to life from total death, human beings can and logically will be brought back to life from the dust of the earth. It's like the natural world is giving us a daily preview of the resurrection. Finally, we arrive at our last thematic pillar, Section 6, the final day of decision. The skeptics, who are still pushing back against the warning at this point, pose one final, really impatient challenge. The text quotes them, "When is this decision if you should be truthful?" They are essentially demanding a timetable. They're mocking the delay of this promised judgment and asking for immediate, undeniable proof right then and there. But the text fires back with a definitive, very sobering answer. The verdict is that, on that actual day of decision, the time for making choices is completely over. Declaring faith on that final day will absolutely not save those who previously disbelieved and ignored all those natural and historical signs we just talked about. The core argument is that belief has to be a choice you make before the ultimate reality is visually forced upon you. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative command from the text to the messenger. So turn away from them and wait. Indeed, they are waiting. What an ending, right? It leaves that ultimate resolution just hanging in the air, creating this immense sense of dramatic anticipation. I really hope this structured look at the themes of Surah As-Sajda has helped you grasp the narrative logic and the intense messaging woven throughout the text. If the tangible signs are truly all around us, from the vast cosmos down to a single drop of rain, what will be your reality when the hourglass finally runs out? Keep reflecting on these structures, and I can't wait to explore more fascinating texts with you in our next explainer.